Hello there, I'm Crystal Joy.
I'm David Raz.
And this is On the Chair with Crystal.
And David.
You might have seen us on YouTube, but especially if you haven't, please stick around. This is where we talk about all the true stories and interesting inspirations behind the YouTube videos that we make.
Even if you haven't watched those YouTube videos, still enjoy the content. But if you do want more context, you can go on and go check those videos out.
You are on the chair.
You are on the chair.
That's you.
Welcome.
Welcome. Today we are talking about our video, Can You Survive Time Travel?
Haha, time travel.
Time travel. We actually made those videos pretty far in advance, so it's been quite some time since we've done work on it.
Quite some time.
That we are recording this podcast,
Mm-hmm.
so I have quite a bit of notes. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, we talk about the true parts of these videos, and then we go into takeaways that we wanted, or cool inspirations, or cool fun facts. So I led this video, and typically whoever leads the video has like a story that was true based on them. But actually,
it's my story.
it is David's story. Partially. David did not go back in time.
I did. I figured out time travel. It was me.
We'll get there, actually, to how one could potentially do such things. But
No. It is a story though.
what is the real portion, since it is your story?
I actually time travel. No. I went. It's about my dog.
Oh yeah. So in the video, not to cut you off, for those who didn't see, in the video we do like this time, forward in time, backward in time, shenanigans, hijinks, misadventures, and when back in time, David realizes, oh fuck, this is the time in which my dog died.
Yes.
And he has to go stop it.
So I mean, the whole video is not about my dog.
No. But this was this true part that was based on true events. Was
Right.
the dog part?
And that dog I had when I was, I think, give or take around 9 or 10.
Mm-hmm.
I basically had the dog when it was a puppy, and we grew up together. And then
Was his name really Dodger?
his name was really Dodger.
Why? Why was his name really Dodger?
His name was really Dodger because I don't know if you guys have seen it, for maybe my older listeners. But Oliver and Company
From Disney.
had a main character dog that was a really cool dog, and
Yeah,
his
he's
name
really
was
cool.
Dodger, and he was from New York City.
Yeah. David told me once, he was like, in the song, the undercounter to St. Mark's, then I'm down on Delancey Street. He was like,
Yeah.
I live there.
I live there. That's me.
That's me. I'm going to name my dog Dodger, which
Yeah.
is so cute.
That is where I got the name from.
Precious. Okay, so what is the true facts about the dog, and what is the not true facts about the dog? What actually happened? Because if all has gone according to my plan as video lead, people are crying.
Mm.
And if not, they're feeling a little bit like, damn.
I did.
So
I mean, I cried a little bit too. Like,
I know, real talk, even like going back, because it's still not completely done as of right now. I'm working on it, and I'll go and I'll get to that part. And I actually get emotional, especially because I'm taking many weeks away from it at a time before I
Yeah.
come back to it. I get to that part and I'm like, no.
So
I get emotional.
You know, we're moving a lot. Did have to have the dog stay with someone else. The only part of the story that's true is that my dog passed away.
Which is the one part that nobody wants to be true.
Yeah.
Because I actually was going to keep it in the storyline that like the dog got hit and it died.
Yes.
You didn't do it. You didn't make it, but it was just a little too much.
Yeah.
It just like hurt too much to even write. So I was like, no, the dog is okay in the end.
The dog being okay
But
is kind of,
what
honestly,
we wanted to happen.
yeah, that's my happy ending
Yeah, that David
for
didn't get to
myself.
have.
Yeah.
So what is the true story of Dodger? Because I'm sure everybody's curious.
I grew up with him. You know, we did play together all the time. He was my best bud. I had to move a lot, so we had to have Dodger stay with a relative. It was my stepfather's relative, and they did not like my stepfather, and so they ended up telling the police to come and put my dog down.
That's awful.
Yeah, I don't like reliving it, but that is what happened.
Sorry I made you say it.
No, it's fine. That is the actual story of what happened.
But you guys
it did break my heart.
You guys were bros.
Yeah. I have a picture of my dog.
If we can scan it somehow, we'll put it up. If not,
Yeah.
It's okay. But there's also, I think you told me this when we first got together. And then I was like, damn, that's really sad. But like how much that this was David's body. There's a locket of Dodger's hair in David's nightstand right now.
Yeah.
And he is 33.
I am.
Fucking break your fucking heart. Am I right? Jesus Christ.
That was the goodest boy for me.
Damn.
So
that was...
So it was really cathartic and kind of honoring to have a video
dedicated to Dodger.
Yeah, just kind of wanted to put that out there in loving memory of him. A really loving memory.
And also, I think the nature of the video is about time travel and going back and like do things that you wish would be done differently,
right?
Etc. I mean, obviously, we both have a lot of things that we wish could be done differently. None of them are really like fun for YouTube.
Yeah.
So that was like the most relatable one to fit in, I suppose.
And I was, like I said, I was very happy to honor Dodger with that.
Yeah.
So
he deserved it.
He did.
He deserved it.
He did.
It was very David past heavy. I guess the other true facts is like David did in fact live on Avenue D in the Lower East Side in 1997 or 1998, whenever that video was, the past part of that video was set. That is true.
That is true.
And you know what else is actually true?
What?
The fucking basketball hoop.
Oh, yeah,
the basketball hoop. Okay, so there's a part near the end. This was one of the most ridiculous stories that David told me about growing up. Yeah. I had to put it in. Okay, so there's a basketball court.
So in the lower, there is a basketball court, and the actual hoops are cement. So the base of the hoops are cement, and they come up, these columns come up, and then someone that I knew, I don't know how they did it, but they like saw through the cement and had the whole piece and brought it to their house.
Well, okay, all you know, right? So you're like, I want to go play basketball, and the whole shit's missing.
The whole back of the hoop was gone. Well, the whole thing was gone.
Sawed off.
But it was sawed off, and it was through concrete that's thick, okay?
Like a big brick?
Yeah,
like a big block?
Like if I did this...
No, it was that big?
Yeah, it was like that.
That's ridiculous.
It was like that.
Okay, and so how do we know what happened, David? How do we know what happened to the basketball hoop?
Oh, yes. I go to visit this associate. I go to visit their house. And lo and behold, there it is.
It's in their room.
In their room.
I can't.
And they're shooting from their bed into the hoop. You can't make that up. You can't make that up. That's great.
That's the silliest shit. I had to put it in there.
He's like, I got the hoop, yo.
I believe that's the last bit. So we had a nice little like ode to David's upbringing.
Yeah. Just a slight touch of it.
I think that was my favorite story that you ever told me about growing up. Like, there's a lot of absurdities about that you hear, especially if you've grown up in the hood and you're somebody that you know has grown up in the hood and you're just like, from the rinky-dink ho-hum ass part of the suburbs where they just tip cows for fun, and you just hear about this stuff. It's gold. That's just funny shit.
Yeah. I still find it funny to this day.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
So of course I had to animate a stick person just yeeting across the screen with a with a fucking basketball. It was so good. Beyond that,
right?
This was such a fun video for me.
Yeah.
To write. It's juicy, kids.
It was interesting.
It's juicy.
It was interesting playing myself twice.
Oh yeah. So we had that was a weird it was a weird recording because I was David in the recording portion, so I could actually surprise him with the nature of the video, so he had natural reactions.
And then I reversed.
But then we went back in and he
revoiced it over.
He revoiced it over with himself.
Right.
Which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way it turned out.
It turned out good, yeah.
I'm proud of that video. And in general, the video has a lot to do with time travel. And as much as there's a lot of time travel content out there, as science has progressed, I don't really see time travel content that's really hits on the wonkiness of how time really works.
Or as far as we know it.
As far as we know it so far. And when I had my hyperfixation on that kind of shit in 2020, this was an interesting one. I think the only piece of media that's close to kind of capturing the craziness of it is the Loki.
Is it Loki?
The Loki series.
I thought you were going to say Interstellar.
Interstellar is in this. It has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
Interstellar was cool. It's literally in my notes, so obviously it's fine. But I don't know if it captures there's an essence. There's like a spirit that Loki captures. I feel is very interesting. But
Right.
Interstellar specifically captures the more realistic nature of it and how it works. I just, Matthew McConaughey. Wow. Dude, I had said that to a friend. I was just like, I don't really like Matthew McConaughey. And he got like legitimately mad at me.
As I'm sure listeners will.
Listen, he's a good actor. My first thing, I'm not going to say he's a bad actor. Right. I'm not like, ew, I don't like watching him because he's a bad actor. No, he gives me weird vibes. I don't really know how else to explain it. The vibes, they're off with that man.
But he can act.
But his vibes are off. Even I can like sense it. I can like taste it through his acting. That his vibes are really weird. Anyway, this has nothing to do with how weird Matthew McConaughey is.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with that.
But, so Interstellar, to my chagrin, very accurately captures the more realistic aspect of time travel.
Right.
So what particularly that I took away was going fast versus wormholes.
Right.
So this is just some fun facts. Like you can technically go very, very fast in outer space. Mm-hmm. And because of the nature of how I believe the word is time, there's time space and then there's space time. Mm-hmm. Two different things.
Okay. What does that mean?
I am inevitably going to mix them up.
Fair warning. You've been warned. You have been warned. Okay. So what's, as a pleb, what's the difference?
Space-time, I had to pull up the Google to make sure I didn't sound like an idiot here. Space-time is a mathematical model that combines the three dimensions of space.
Mathematical model that combines the three what of space?
The three dimensions of space.
Okay.
And one dimension of time into a single four-dimensional manifold.
Gotcha. And that is what?
That's space-time.
Space-time.
And then there's time-space.
Time-space.
Time-space is the nothing nowhere. Everything everywhere all at once. Nothing nowhere.
I see.
So space-time is being in space and then putting in how time is relative to how you move within space.
Right.
And time-space, this was something that's a fun little funsy that we'll get to later. That's a little bit more like woo-woo and esoteric, but it's still a fun concept, so we will talk about it later. If one had to put it into words, it's kind of what Everything Everywhere All at Once toys with. If you saw that movie.
Everything
Everywhere all at once kind of toys with, they don't ever say time space, but they toy with that.
The idea of
the everything and nothing all at the same time vibe. That's time space. So space time. So what I found interesting was that in space time, if you go very, very quickly, which is what we see in Interstellar, you can move forward in time.
Or backwards.
Or no, it's forward.
No, wormholes.
Wormholes only go backwards.
In Interstellar.
Yes. Well, also in general, that's the theory.
Right.
But we'll get to that. So you can move at a rapid pace, and because of the way that time overlays in space, because time is also relative to the gravitation. I'm gonna sound like such an idiot. I'm not a science bitch. But it's relative. There's a lot of things that play into it. Like in Interstellar, they get really close to the planet. The closer they get to the planet, the weirder time moves. Same thing because of gravity and black holes, and that's why time is relative, and time is not a linear thing. So you can move ahead. You could go really, really fast in a spaceship. Just go real fast.
But they're
and get in the
going,
future.
Them going to that planet, if I'm not mistaken, you can correct me. It was also not just the gravity, but they were close to a black hole. Black hole, right?
Yeah.
So
but also it's the nature, it's a few things, but it's the nature of moving quickly through space because of how that time dimension overlays in the three-dimensional space of space. Mm-hmm. That there's, you know what, links in the description for people who know more than me. Okay. Fact is, you go really fast in space.
Go vroom.
Time
don't matter.
No, time does matter, but...
Time matter.
So what has felt like 15 minutes to you, it's been 10 years on the place that you're from. So you could just go backwards. Again, like go back from where you came from, and it's been 20 years, because 10 to get there, 10 back. Wow, you traveled 20 years in the future, and it's been 30 minutes for you. Because of the nature of how time... But then you're like, well, then how do you go back, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where the wormhole theory comes in.
Because supposedly black holes fold... matter on itself? Is that, or it crushes matter?
Well, we don't really know what black holes do. We don't really know. But yeah, matter kind of condenses to a point that I believe envelops everything. I wrote a lot of notes. My notes for this episode are like off the wall long as opposed to normal notes, and I don't I researched these specific questions and I didn't write them for this. I researched the answers to those specific things in the video, but I don't have them in my podcast notes.
That's fine.
Now I want to know. Okay, because because it's the thing. I remember. Basically, like I said, the time is foldy. Time and space is kind of foldy. Like if you see like the pictures of like the Earth and it's on that grid and the grid's kind of like going downwards a little bit, it's because it's flexible in ways. So wormholes basically connect one point of that
to another
point.
I see. So if it's like this, and then a black hole would
and you're kind of going down that way.
That would lead you to another space.
Yes.
Area.
Yes.
Quickly.
Yes. And the argument would then be, well, then you're not going back in time.
You're going forward.
But, asterisk, that's if we're working on a linear timeline. And we also don't know how that wormhole works. So we know in subatomic particles can disappear and reappear. Like from existence. We don't know where they go.
Right.
And it's the same idea, like where do we go when we're in the wormhole and we get spit out in another location? Who knows? It's in a different dimension. So, and there's also a theory that takes out linear time, and it's called the cube universe theory.
Right.
So this idea is that all time is happening all the time.
Every time. Which
is where everything, everywhere, all at once kind of gets that. But even everything, everywhere, all at once, in my opinion, totally dropped. I mean, it's a chunky subject.
It's a chunk.
To make a movie about.
Chunk.
They really focused on, it was at that one point in time for that woman. She was like, I don't know, however old, 45 or something. And all of those different universes in that movie, she was still 45. Well, what I wish they would have touched on is the idea that all time is happening all the time. So when you're everywhere, you're everything everywhere all at once, you are all of yourselves, past, present, and future, in all possibilities, all at once. So if time space is folding on itself, right? Okay, I'm about to have some fun times explaining. So there's this girl, I believe her name is Yamani. She talks about quantum physics and spirituality and stuff on TikTok. She's a very smart young lady. She knows way more than me about stuff. She's very dedicated to learning of quantum physics. But she is who sparkened my brain with the understanding of why that would work. So if you have a piece of paper.
Yes.
Right? And you have 2 dots on that piece of paper. That's a 2-dimensional. Right? How do you get from one dot to the other? You make a line.
Right.
Okay. Well, let's just say you're a little existent on that paper in the 2D reality, and you don't want to follow that line to get to here. I'm going to use my mask filter.
You don't want to use the line to get there. You have to fold it on itself.
You have to fold it on itself. So you're here. For those who are on the video, ignore the hole. You're here.
For those reality. For those just listening, she has a piece of cloth.
It's a mask filter
that she can fold in half.
Okay, so there's this piece here, this little dot, and then there's this little dot here. So instead of there's a hole, right? Let's just say there's a line, and you want to get there without going on the line. You would have to come into 3D reality to have those 2 points touch, right? So to do that, if you were a 2D being on that piece of paper, to have that 3D experience, to go to that, it would look like insane. It would be like, what is happening? This is some wonky, insane shit. What am I even looking at? I don't understand it. Right. And since we are in a 3D reality.
Going into 4-dimension.
Going into a 4-dimension reality where we are fucking with going to a different location in time because time is the 4th dimension, we would have to leave a 3D reality into a reality where all time is all of the time.
That makes sense.
It's hard for our brains to comprehend, but we are bound by 3D reality right now. So to go to a 4D reality to then move backwards in time is kind of outside of our realm of understanding. So in theory, this is what a wormhole does.
Right.
It functions in that 4th dimension. So if you go, we put a really nice little graph that our lovely artist made for us in the video, where it's this little loop, just like this, but in space time, and there's this little connecting them both, and that is the wormhole theory. And so wormholes will send you back in time.
Got you.
Quote unquote back in time, or that's the theory.
Right.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense. No, it makes sense to me. So you wanted to have this in the video.
Yes, and I obviously made it like that's the only way you can go forward and back in the video.
Right.
So with that being the case, the other thing that I wanted to avoid, or I put that in the video because I think it's absolutely fascinating, how time is relative depending on where you are in space-time.
Right.
Which it opens a whole can of worms. When you're just like, okay, so if that's the case, then, and then there's just a whole bunch of if-thens that just start to happen. So then you start looking at, well, what other time media has been made? This is what was in my mind. I'm like, oh, we have Back to the Future, of course. That also functions on a linear understanding of time.
Right.
So it's like, well...
So going back in time like we did in the video, was that a linear kind of...
That was an ode to the linear understanding of time as we know it. I kind of wanted to like do like a little 1-2 swap.
Gotcha.
Like swapped bitch. It's not even actually like that.
I kind of like how it's an evolution of our thought processes of how time worked. Because I remember growing up thinking that time was like linear like that. Yeah. Until they started coming out with these multiverses and Interstellar and all these different
I feel like even multiverses are just like, oh, it's just this also same line, just all running parallel together, and there's just an infinite amount of them. You're just like, awesome. No, all time is happening all the time, and all possibilities are happening all at once. So
they're basically all where Loki was in that area.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah. So what also then brings up was when I was writing the video, we did the linear understanding of it. But at the end, I tried to be like, okay, so it's not actually linear because this isn't actually your past. It's a different past.
Right. Which kind of works for the video because that actually didn't happen. Or did it?
Or did it?
Or did it?
Are we actually time travelers?
I said that in the beginning.
Who fucking knows? What I wanted to work in as well is... we see in time butterfly effect, and if you're a youth and you don't know
butterfly effect,
that Ashton Kutcher was once in a movie called The Butterfly Effect, educate yourself. Or if you don't know
boomer. God,
rude. Yeah. I'm at least 2 generations away from boomer. Fucking rude, bro.
That's me. It's my story.
What the butterfly effect is, if you don't know, is this idea that through linear time, there's this idea that scientists have fucked around with for a long time that creates time paradoxes. So if you go back in time and you change something, what will happen? Will your future be different, which is what we see in Back to the Future? Or will you just be in a different version of the future, which is what happens with, I guess butterfly effect happens with Back to the Future and the Little Butterfly Effect movie with Ashton Kutcher.
Right. You change one little thing and
everything changed.
Makes a chain reaction.
And like the flap of a butterfly's wings, which is why they call it a butterfly effect. It's like for those of you who liked this book as a kid, if you give a mouse a cookie, like where like just a chain reaction of events, like you change one thing, a butterfly flaps its wings, and
and all of a sudden a cat is the president.
Yeah, that would be so much better.
Vote Dusky for president.
Dusk for president. Dusk, what do you have to say about that? Dusk. Hey.
He sniff. He sniff real good.
What's interesting?
Yeah.
The butterfly effect isn't real. Confirmed, actually, with science. And you're like, how can we confirm that the butterfly effect isn't real
if you don't have time?
Don't have time travel?
Right.
Well, what we do have quantum mechanics and quantum computers. So.
It's just a simulation.
Yeah, it's a simulation of what would happen with time travel through quantum computers. Now, I don't know how the fuck quantum computers work.
With quantums. Duh.
I don't know, and I'm not here to tell you.
With quantums. Duh.
I just know they're fancier than normal, and they use quantum mechanics and physics. That end. You're welcome for the science lesson. This group of scientists did an experiment on what would happen if you tried to use a quantum computer to simulate changing an event in the past. How damaged or fractured would the future be? What would happen? Whatever. So what they noticed was that they said they took qubits, whatever that means, put them, I believe, 20 seconds or something into the past.
Isn't that from Harry Potter?
Qubits? No.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Quidditch.
Ah.
Yeah.
It's not familiar.
Completely different thing. Completely different thing. Okay, I'm just gonna read off what I have here.
Okay.
Using a quantum computer to simulate time travel, researchers determined that in the quantum realm there is no butterfly effect. In research information qubits or quantum bits, time travel, quote unquote, into a simulated past. One of them is then strongly damaged, like stepping on a butterfly, metaphorically speaking. Surprisingly, when all of the qubits return to the quote unquote present, they are largely unaltered, as if reality is self-healing.
So the butterfly still existed anyway, even if you stepped on it.
Yeah. The farther things go, it takes longer for things to go back to normal, but things actually like go back to normal. Like, you want to know why?
Why?
Because all time is happening all the time. So if you went back to a version of the past or the version of now and you changed a thing, and you come back to this present, this present is unaltered because this present is not affected by that past because all time is all the time.
I see. So in a sense, it's kind of like creating its own.
One would say like, oh, you created a new timeline by doing that, but it's a very flawed way of looking at it. It's like, this is actually like where the mandala effect comes into play because we do still see things being weird. So
Right.
like, let's just say the mandala effect is a perfect example. Everybody's talked about it for a long time. If you don't know, it started with Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 90s. Surprise, actually, no, he didn't.
Right.
There's lots of people who vividly remember him dying in prison. I am one of them. I remember him dying in prison. Right. I remember hearing about it, learning about it in school, watching documentaries about it. And then around about 2012, 2013, no, he didn't. He actually got released from prison and lived to like 90 or something like that.
The Berenstain Bears and
blah,
Pikachu
blah, blah, and the
tail
Pikachu
and all
and
the
the blah,
stuff.
blah, blah.
Yeah.
So in theory, this is like we're seeing, quote unquote, the damage of an altered, quote unquote, timeline, quote unquote, because it's also a limited understanding of what it is. But there is an alteration. Things are still largely the same.
Right. See, I guess what I kind of don't understand in that respect is like, so what gives one action more weight than the other, right? Why, when I step on the butterfly, is the butterfly still alive in our time, but
Well, sometimes
instead of dead?
It's you see damages, they say. So it's like the present stays the same, at least within small increment changes such as a bug dying. It says, quote, we can actually see what happens with a complex quantum world if we travel back in time at a small damage. In return, we found that our world survives, which means there's no butterfly effect. Simulating the return to a past can cause small local damages in a quantum system, leading only to small, insignificant local damage in the present. The further back in time the equipments travel, the more complicated things get.
I see. Okay. So things can drastically change.
They can change, but it's not like it is like basically things would be basically the same.
Okay, so what do you think makes it? It's just a random question. What do you think makes it so that we remember? Let's say all this is factual, right? Mm-hmm. What is that makes it so that we remember the Pikachu tail, and some people don't?
Multiverses, BB.
Multiverses,
BB. So that's where we have all time is happening all the time. So all of your past, all of your present, and all of your future are all existent all right now. Mm. That also includes all of the potential things you could have done in the past and all the potential things that you could do in the future. Mm. Those are all of those infinite possibilities all exist right now.
Right.
At this very moment in a cube type universe, which we touch on at the end.
So there's one where I'm a millionaire right now.
Yes, actually.
What's happening?
And so I just made a really fun little finger wiggle for those who just heard me make a really weird noise into my mic. That was a purposeful weird noise. The point exactly is how we get to altering time and how time can have these weird little conjunctions.
Right.
Now this, I'm going to say right now, is getting into hearsay and pseudoscience.
Pseudoscience and woo-woo nature. But this is a big part of the video.
Yes, and it's...
And why we made...
It is all theory, but it's all theory that is backed in, like, valid understandings of quantum mechanics, valid understandings of how our brain comprehends time,
right,
and valid understandings of, like, this does no harm so long as you remain grounded in your physical reality to enjoy the idea of or to challenge yourself to grow by.
Right.
Right? So,
Do you want to talk about the atoms reacting first, or...
What atoms reacting to what?
You have energy and change and intention when you're at when you spoke to the water and froze it, the atoms.
Well, now now that's getting into manifestation rather than time travel.
Fair.
They're related, and I will get to that. There is a lot of subatomic particular activity, like entanglement, or
because they are related. That's why I was saying.
As Albert Einstein explains, spooky action at a distance. They are related, but that's where it starts to branch off into more of a change your own reality, but which we do touch on we do touch on an idea of which we'll get to. It's kind of one of the last things I have listed here.
Right.
We're going to get back to that cube type universe. I kind of said it and then I just kind of like yeeted it and didn't really talk about it further.
Into space. Time,
so,
space.
I explained it. It's explained like this. All time is happening all the time. And there's a cube type universe. If that's kind of hard to wrap your brain around, it's like imagine the universe is like a record.
Mm-hmm.
Right? All of the songs exist on that record.
Right.
The moment you pick up the record.
It does.
The needle
mm-hmm.
sits at a certain place on the record
mm-hmm.
and just plays through the song linearly. Otherwise, you can't hear the song.
Right.
But if you pick up the
you
needle
and
go to a different song. But all of those songs are existing at the exact same time. And in a cube type universe, all nows are right now. All time is all the time. There is not just like, there's like this version in the cube universe where now is now, and there's a version in the cube type universe where the other now is now.
Right.
So instead of thinking about it like, I've seen lots of pictures of multiverses where like different spheres all lined up in a really nice, neat little row.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's all squiddly douched together.
Squiggly douched.
All at once. Which, again, is why I get why people are really into everything everywhere all at once. I have my thoughts on it. I love the concept. I love what they did with it. I also love the directors. Amazing directing, amazing acting, fucking slay, everybody. As far as the time thing goes, right. I feel like they
could have did a little bit more.
Could have focused. I'm just a slut for that kind of stuff. Nerdy time stuff. It's back with the cube type universe theory is backed up by Albert Einstein's theory of relativity, which states that space and time are part of a four-dimensional structure where everything has happened on its own coordinates in space-time.
Right.
Right. So then we have, that's all nice and dandy, but outside of just me wanting to work that into a video, how does, and, okay, cool facts, I don't really give a shit. It's actually very applicable to you right now.
And that's what we were basically talking about in the video.
Yes, that's what we were talking about in the video. So if every time is happening all the time,
mm-hmm.
all of those times are what is present to the version of you experiencing it.
Mm.
So to be present is to be at one with all of those infinite possibilities.
Which is kind of what everything all at once simulates.
Kind of. They never actually get to being stable in your present state. They're just like, nothing matters and I can just do, nothing matters, so everything matters. They just went that way with it. It's fine. It's valid. I think it completely missed the being present in your physical space. The mindfulness practices that every fucking therapist throws at you that they think is so special and off the wall and different.
Right.
It's actually very important.
So we're talking more like, if anyone remembers this movie, The One, like Jet Li.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking more of.
Kind of, but even then, that's all linear because they're all the same age.
Yeah, that's true.
They're all the same age. The version of you where you are a child is the version of you now, which is where I said before, the last thing that I guess, this all leads together, but I'll mention it and then I'll talk about how I got there.
Okay.
David goes back and engages with his young version of himself, which in a literal video sense is like playing with the timeline, time travel back and forth linear thing.
Mm.
But it's more so an allegory of how you can engage with a different version of yourself
by
being present.
Right.
And how that actually does alter physical reality in a certain sense. And I don't mean like, I really thought about me being a millionaire and like now I'm a millionaire the next day. There's something called...
So it doesn't work like that?
So there's something called shifting, which is on TikTok where some people are swaying up and down that that's possible. Mm. And I don't discount it as possible.
Right.
Right. There's the scientific theory that everything must happen eventually. Mm. So eventually there is the literal scientific possibility that you could go through a wall. So there is the literal scientific possibility that could happen. Mm. But what I wanted to get at was the importance of accessing all of those different quote unquote versions of now by being present fully and connecting with the oneness of all things. You can pseudo time travel.
Got you.
You can pseudo time travel. And see, when I say physical effects in your reality, I mean your brain will function differently.
Right, because it can't tell the difference.
No. I've said this before, but your brain cannot tell the difference between your thoughts memories, and what is currently happening right now.
Your brain dumb.
Brain a little dumb.
Sorry. You're right.
Brain a little dumb. I'm trying the best. Trying the best, okay? Right, so actually, in that, precedent is where eternity meets reality, so infinity and infinite possibility.
Right.
The present is how we access that. So the only evidence you have of last week is your memory, but memory comes from a stable structure of neurons in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, according to the block universe view, time and temporal relations of earlier than or later than exist. These relations hold regardless of where anyone is located. And since we're always located wherever we are, which is trivially true, everyone is located in the present just as everyone is located at the place they call here.
But that only has to do with past. What about future?
Same.
But you don't have memories of future.
But you can create memories of future. So if all time is happening all the time, if you can imagine yourself doing it, then it exists in infinite reality somewhere. And that's where that starts coming in.
Right.
You can't remember the future because it's never happened. Or has it? It's happening right now. This is where we go to choices, and this is where I mentioned at the end, like where your mind goes, your energy goes.
Right.
So in a physical space, could we get into a rocket ship and go really far and then come back and then be Matthew McConaughey and have your daughter be 90? Sure. Could we find a wormhole and like yeet ourselves through it and see what happens? Yeah. And go into a physical reality? Sure. But to even do that wormhole one, you still need to be outside of our understanding of 3D reality for a time to go through space-time. Otherwise, a wormhole just doesn't work. So we then, to supersede, to do that on a physical right now level, you do not need a spaceship and you don't need to go into space in a wormhole. You can experience a similar idea by escaping the bounds of time through your pineal gland, which is something we talk about in other videos, but your mind can go there, right? That means it is experiencing a potential. And if you're experiencing that potential, then it is possible to happen. For example, you are very present. You are mindful. Do your mindfulness practices. Take in some nice deep breaths. You're not thinking anything at all.
Right.
The feeling of the couch holding you up, the feeling of your clothes, the texture, the material, what do you see, blah, blah, blah. Get very present. Mm-hmm. And then you intentionally close your eyes and remember, this is how we get to the video, your child self. This is where child work comes in, which is a very popular discussion of topic on at least my end of TikTok. Inner child work.
On some, like, self-care.
On some self-care shit.
Therapy stuff.
On some self-care therapy stuff. You go to the youngest, like, whatever version of yourself as a child that you felt needed an adult. Right? And you have a memory of that. Now, you don't just replay a traumatic memory. No. Because that's very triggering.
And, like we said, your brain doesn't know the difference, so you would just be reliving it.
You would be reliving it. You go to that memory and you change it. You rewrite the memory by being present and being an advocate for the smaller version of yourself, or discussing things with them, or talking to them. And truly, you'd be surprised at, like, your brain comes up with stuff. Now, I know that's a little bit different for people with aphantasia who cannot visualize, but there is a see, sense, hear, feel, taste, know. Like, any of your senses, there's a knee-jerk default reaction in one of those senses. What is it? You can just know. My child self would say this, right?
Right.
But if for those of you who don't have aphantasia, you can visualize that moment, go to that place, have that conversation, and actively change the way it went. And then when you open your eyes, you behave
as if
that memory of your younger self is your memory. Now, that's some weird shit, and it's some spicy psychology nonsense, but it's not nonsense. It's very effective.
Super spicy.
Very spicy psychology. And that's where I really wanted to drive home, is the idea of you are then, in some way, if present is how we access all possible time possibilities, which are everywhere all at once. There is a scientific possibility that by you doing that, you are in some way engaging with that smaller version of yourself, which actually would create some kind of pseudo healing, which would affect yourself now.
And this is essentially fixing the past,
or helping fixing the past through
time travel,
being your own help, I guess.
Time travel within your own mind.
Yes. Which sounds insane, but the CIA released documents in 2003 called the Gateway Project that talks about literally how to do this, how successful it was, and the cool shit that they did with it. Mm-hmm. Of course, they withheld, I think, 2 or 3 very important pages.
Right.
All with the intention of, well, if you can master this technique, then you can travel in your mind and find what the pages say. Mm-hmm. And it's also the government. Are they really going to give us everything? No.
So what you're saying is Stranger Things is real.
That's a completely different train of thought. But sure.
Elle exists. She likes Eggos.
I mean, if we're doing everything everywhere all at once, sure. There's a multiverse out there where Elle exists and likes Eggos. Yeah, why not?
More importantly, I could have psychic powers.
Sure.
But I don't like the nosebleeds. I'm not into that.
No.
I'm not really with that.
But what is interesting is I linked the Gateway Project in the description. If you want to read about it, it's very interesting. They talk about step by step. Induce a state of calm, lower your blood pressure, get your circulatory system and other organs vibrating at 7 hertz or 7 to 8 hertz, which, fun fact, is the Schumann resonance. Mm-hmm. The Schumann resonance is 7.8 hertz. Mm-hmm. So, and that's also when you start lowering your brainwaves. Brainwave talk. Okay, quick lesson.
Wait, first of all, if you don't know who Schumann is,
Okay, so the Schumann resonance is the vibration that the Earth vibrates at. Everything has its own vibration, right?
Funny fact, the Earth is called Schumann.
Sure.
That's not true. Go ahead.
So, your brain, everything's vibrating, your brain's vibrating, it all has hertz and frequencies, right? So, when we're thinking, our brain is at a, I believe, beta state, and it is pretty fast. Like the wave function, the waveform is big and close.
Big and close.
We go down. If you can, I guess, start calming your mind, taking some deep breaths. When people measure your brain, it will start looking a little bit less close, a little bit less big. It's what they call alpha state. Mm-hmm. And
this isn't sleeping.
No, this isn't sleeping. Theta is almost sleeping. In theta, you can be awake.
Wait, we're talking about alpha.
Well, theta is the one right below alpha.
So when is alpha?
Alpha is when you are deeply relaxed.
That's deep relaxed. Deep relaxed, kind of like I'm in a bath, or
sure.
Deep relaxed like I'm a monk.
That's more like theta.
Okay, so here I'm
in a bath and my mind is not that spiraling.
Got you.
I'm in a bath and I am being mindful. That's mindfulness. Like I'm not thinking about a million things. I am thinking about the water on my skin. I am thinking about the temperature that I feel. I am thinking about very slow thoughts. Like it's a lot not less, oh my gosh, I have ADHD and I'm thinking about a million things, which is beta. More, I'm vibing. And my brain is okay. My brain is calm. And then we go down a little bit further. We get into theta.
Last question before you go into theta. How present is alpha?
How present is alpha? What do you mean?
Like, you said no thoughts.
I mean, there are some thoughts. They're just relaxed. Think about it as a state of flow.
Yeah, and that's why I said how present is it? Like, is it like, oh, look, I am touching a chair. This chair feels soft.
I think it depends on the person, and I would have to look at everybody's brainwaves depending. But
you heard that first. Send your brainwaves.
Yeah, send your brainwaves. Please don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Alpha is more like the state of flow.
Okay.
If you're drawing, if you like to draw, and you're just like you're just weirdly focusing at the task at hand, and you're just like, oh man, the time is gone. That's like an alpha.
Gotcha.
You're in a state of flow. You're present. You're doing whatever it is that you're doing. There are some thoughts, there is presence, but you are like, just kind of, there's flow.
You're in a zone.
You're in the zone. Yeah, that's alpha. And then you go down to right before sleep, and that's theta. The theta is also, I believe, where the pineal gland starts to get all tingly.
Now, this is daydreaming or what?
It can be. It can be daydreaming. And it's meditative, and it's very, very calm. The wave is very far apart and very calm. It is in that place that really cool stuff starts to happen. And it's also like where you dream, it's where you do this, it's where you do that. And it's also the vibration of the earth, which is why a lot of those bitches be like, listen to music in 432 hertz, because takes 8, multiply it by 54 for some reason. I don't know why 54, and then you get 432, and then they're all like, that's the music of the universe.
So
or whatever.
So Pocahontas had it right.
How? What do you mean?
She's listening to the colors of the wind?
Yes. Bitch had it 100%. Listen to the colors of the wind. All of the trees have spirits, and you can touch the tree.
Be Pocahontas.
Be Pocahontas.
That's the end.
No,
Done.
we're not even
Oh,
close to
shit.
done. Excuse
Sorry.
you. I was talking about the Gateway Project. And it says get your organ systems vibrating at 7 to 8. Well, 7 to 7.5, but theta is 7 to 8. Ideally, 7 to 7.8-ish.
Right.
Then, increased resonance is achieved. So resonance is when two things vibrate at the same frequency.
Mm-hmm.
Resulting sound waves matches the electrostatic field of the Earth, which is 7.8. The body and the Earth and other similarly tuned minds become a single entity continuum. This is straight out of the CIA documents, by the way. And that is where you start...
Know your facts.
Okay. So, resonance is, let's just say you are a guitar player, and you have two strings that are tuned to the same note right next to each other. You pluck one, the one that's next to it will, even though you did not pluck it, start doing that, start vibrating at the same rate.
Right.
That is how resonance works. And in this, it says that if you can get your brain functioning to the default setting of all things, you can then become one with all things and surf in your mind around them, I suppose.
Okay, but
everything, everywhere, all at once.
How arrogant to think that if you vibrate at the frequency of Earth, that is all things. There is other planets.
I mean, that's how we
sorry.
act.
I apologize.
You're entirely correct. It is how it's the doorway into other things. Because there's even more. I believe I could be talking on my ass for this part. But once you've hit theta, if you start experiencing certain things, your brainwaves actually speed back up, but it's a different type of thing then. I think it's gamma or delta. I forget.
Is that when I have nightmares?
Maybe. I don't know.
That's a real question.
I don't know. Maybe. When you're experiencing delta, and once again, could be talking on my ass, totally admit that I am vaguely remembering something I read once right here. When like people read the brainwaves of like people who are receiving psychic information, who are not talking out of their ass, their brainwave state changes to that faster one. While they're in theta, it drops to theta, and they start receiving information. The brainwaves change, not to beta though, to that whatever that other one.
Interestingly enough, I think real talk, and this is not a joke. In Stranger Things, I think they did do that.
Yeah, because that's how that works. How it works.
Yeah.
So
that's fun. That's a fun fact.
It is. This is very fun facts. And to then be able to do this, which is why meditation is a big deal, because you can get into a theta brainwave state through meditation. You go into, at the very, very beginning of this podcast, David was like, what is time-space then? Space-time versus time-space. Time-space is this. When you have lowered your brainwave state to theta, you can go to this black space and almost like delete your body, Control-Alt-Delete your body. And then you're just a consciousness in this black space. You are no one and you are nowhere, right? So then you can expand your consciousness to touching other things. Now, this is all just activity in your brain. This is just a thought experiment. Quote unquote, now you're all things. Again, your brain doesn't know the difference between fiction and reality. So if you can trick your brain into thinking you're all things, then it has the same benefits as having all things. Then you are everything and you are everywhere. That's what I was, that space where you are nothing and everything at the same time is time space. And that is where you are touching infinity of infinite possibilities.
By being the most present you've ever been.
Yeah.
Got it.
It's just a lot of little fun facts here.
And all this was kind of touched on in the video.
Very briefly.
But this is what the video is based on.
Yeah, it is this idea that like, okay, here's the fun ideas of tangible time travel as science understands it now with the going fast and the wormholes and all of that stuff. And then going, hey, nothing's linear. All time's happening all the time. And if we were to time travel, it would be like that. It would be through those kinds of approaches.
Got you.
And simultaneously, on a more accessible level, you can time travel and see those changes through going to that space in your mind and your brain. Again, whether you are changing your reality externally or you are just spicy psychologying yourself, you will actually have the benefits that come with that actually happening. So there's been studies, I believe.
So basically, why not?
Yeah, why not? Now, it is dangerous if you are not grounded in reality. That's
Right.
just how we can have people losing their minds or getting like messiah complexes or like crazy not grounded in reality shit. But if you do it in a way that's like, I want to heal my inner child, which is something that has been deeply beneficial for me.
Mm-hmm.
I've practiced that. David has practiced that.
I
It
have.
is extremely moving, extremely beneficial, and it's lovely. And I really wanted to include that like pseudo time travel in the video, which is why at the very end I had David have that emotional moment with younger self on the tree to his
To
to
my
his dismay.
most uncomf. Most uncomf.
He's like, I don't want to do this. I'm like, it's nice, David. It's nice.
It felt so cringe.
It's not cringy. It's
it
nice.
It felt so cringe
It's
to me.
wholesome. It's wholesome, goddamn.
But it could be just because I'm being vulnerable.
Because it's you. So basically, you can access, quote unquote, higher, like we talked about earlier with the paper going this way.
Yes.
Your brain can do that
Mm-hmm.
by going up into this timeless. So if you're bound by time here, if your brain can go to this no place, no time situation, you can then do that thing that I was talking about where now you're at a different point.
Right.
And if your brain doesn't know the difference between a memory, thought, or vision, or whatever, versus reality, you can then, that is where, you know, the lovely capitalism of spirituality on TikTok starts to come in. Make yourself a millionaire, blah, 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 blah. Just feel blah, blah, blah. Imagine yourself as a millionaire. It's not just imagine yourself as a millionaire. It's the physical embodiment of how do I feel if that was my reality.
So it's like super imagination.
Super imagination. You're basically rewiring your brain to default to that setting.
I think I manifested you when I was like a kid playing house by myself.
That's really cute. What the fuck? What do you mean?
Just saying, I used to play house by myself. And I always pictured me having a girlfriend.
Yeah.
Who is now wife. Like you.
That's really cute.
It's true.
It's really fucking cute.
Here we are.
So time travel
works.
with yourself.
Space time.
Time travel with yourself. It's a good time. Oh, interestingly enough, the opposite direction.
Yes.
You can meet your younger self and be your younger child. You can also do a thought experiment and meet your future self.
Right.
It's a thought experiment of going forward in time and experiencing life as that person that version of yourself experiences it, but go to like a location in your brain of choice and imagine that the version of you that you want to be. They walk in and let that conversation unfold. And you're like, well, this is just my brain. Yes, but everything is just your brain. Because you can't experience, I've said this in other episodes, but if you can't experience reality outside of your brain, there is no reality outside of your brain.
Right.
Because
Nothing else exists.
senses, right here, is being fed into my nerves, which goes to my neurons, which is in my brain. And if I don't have a brain, then I'm not experiencing anything. So everything is in your brain. Everything is in your brain. So if you feel silly, you being right now, right here, is in your brain.
It's true.
It's weird, but it's true.
You could not be here, and that's what everybody's talking about when they say, am I in a simulation?
Yeah. There is no spoon.
There is no spoon.
That's actually an entirely different episode that I wanted to backlog before we went live, and I didn't. The Matrix video, or the simulation video, as it's been retitled.
The simulation video, because no one remembers the Matrix.
You know how disheartened I was when a whole 20-year-old was like, I've never seen the Matrix. You should retitle it.
Yeah.
So our Can You Survive a Simulation videos was originally called Can You Survive or Can You Escape the Matrix? And one of the first things out of one of the people that we know's mouth was like, I've never seen the Matrix. I don't know what that means, and I won't click on that video. You should change it to simulation. And I was like, you've hurt my soul.
It hurt so much that it took a long time for me to change it, but I eventually did.
It's getting more views now.
They were right.
It's getting more views now, and it's so upsetting.
It's just upsetting that no one knew what the Matrix was.
Go watch the Matrix. That's an entirely different episode. That's juicy. In closing, time is really cool. As I think quantum computing and quantum physics continues to expand its knowledge, the more I think we'll be able to learn and know.
Right.
But on a interpersonal level, I think those two exercises that I was talking about are indispensable in how helpful they are.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea and the knowledge that wherever your mind goes, your energy goes,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's in the past or in the future. I guess this is the last thing. A lot of people are thinking all the time about the past, regrets or whatever, replaying situations, or in the future.
It seems to just come naturally to us.
Yeah, it does. In the future, replaying, rehearsing conversations, or worrying about what's the future going to look like, or what's this or what's that. And we're never here.
Yeah.
And your mind can't tell the difference, right? So if it's remembering those past things, it will embody those past things. And through the law of resonance, your body will be vibrating at that quote unquote frequency of those types of emotions. And you will find yourself in circumstances like that, which is where spiritual TikTok starts to run with it.
That makes sense.
The theory is that how your body resonates is what you will find things that are likely resonating. So if you think about the future and it's bad,
then you'll have bad future.
That's the theory. I'm gonna run both theory here because people have intrusive thoughts, and you are not your thoughts, though. We are the observer of the thoughts, as we've talked about in our podcasts. So if you're present and you remember that you're the observer of your thoughts and you are not your thoughts, you can let them go.
Right.
You can let them pass and go, and be intentional with choosing. Then, once you've let those intrusive thoughts or unwanted thoughts pass your mind and go, oh, that's not defining of me. That's not controlling me. That's okay. You can then be thoughtful and choose what you want to think about and realize that does have a very real and physically measurable impact on your psyche, on your body, on your stress, and potentially on your environment. And through spicy psychology, maybe change your outlook so that you are more motivated to go do something that can actually help your life. And with that, we will let this episode go. I believe if all goes according to plan, this will be going up along the holidays. So, God, I hope it's the holidays and nothing has gone wrong.
I hope so.
Yeah, about that. This was filmed quite a while ago now, and some things have changed. We released a statement on our YouTube channel community tab. But if you only follow us here, basically the videos that we upload the podcasts in tandem with, we will unfortunately be unable to do them moving forward. So that doesn't mean that the podcast is over. The podcast is exponentially easier for us to do, which is kind of the issue. We don't have means to continue making those complex YouTube videos, but we can still talk your ear off. So until we know what we're doing next and we know how this is shifting moving forward, we will be uploading podcast episodes about old videos on our YouTube channel that piqued y'all's interest, like the Colt video, David's Possession, some of our other ones. So there will still be podcast content available. Yeah, it's been an eclipse season for those of you who follow astrology, but it's for the best, I think. I think onward and upward, and I'm excited about what we have cooking, but still not figured out yet. So until then, enjoy your holiday. We'll see you in the new year.